The title of the inscription, it's technical title IG10.2.2.1.27, which means that the number is extracted from the most recent and thorough publication of this inscription, number 27, in the volume Inscriptiones Graecae, volume 10, part 2, fascicle 10, section 1, which includes the inscriptions from part of the Roman Macedonia, let's say the western and southern part of modern North Macedonia. First, a little bit some technical information about the inscription. It was found in 1931 among the remains of an old basilica in the vicinity of the village. You can see it on the map. The village is Suvodol. It is very close to the modern Bitola, and that would be ancient Heraclea Lynkestis. It was a reused inscription, plate, white marble plate broken in 3 parts, whose function, we are not actually sure what was its function, because it was reused as a plate for a column. But the content of the inscription suggests that this was probably originally a funerary inscription. It is today kept in the Archaeological Museum of the Republic of North Macedonia. And if you already noticed from the previous slide, it will be included in the Prometheus digital collection of inscriptions. And you will be able to use it and explore it from there when all the data are entered. The inscription was originally published, of course, immediately after the excavation. Mesesnel, Vulic published the first edition in the Glasnik Skopskog naučnog društva, then Spomenik. Then the inscription was included by Werner Pieck in his edition of verse epitaphs, and its content was explored by Anne-Marie Verilak in a very interesting edition of verse inscriptions dedicated to prematurely deceased children, Pai de Sauroi. But as I already mentioned, the most thorough edition of this inscription is the one that is included in the Inscriptiones Graecae volume. The editors of Inscriptiones Graecae, Fanula Papazoglu, and the collaborators were able actually to notice that this inscription is composed of Homeric verses, and it is likely what is called a cento or canto poem, a patchwork composed of verses. As a literary genre, such poems are known from late antiquity, and obviously something like that was known even before, as our inscription suggests. The editors also noted that the matter is often incorrect, but we should, of course, note that if you can, I hope, see this well, the hedera is used as a diacritic mark to separate the different verses anyway. The dedication, the inscription is dedicated to Eugenius. That's what we know for sure. The name is mentioned twice in the inscription. But apart from that, actually, we know very little about the real Eugenius and his fate, because although there are more than 20 lines, about 22 lines, actually the inscription offers only poetic verses at it doesn't offer much actual information, which is usual for epitaphs. So this makes our inscription intriguing because, of course, we would like to know who was Eugenius, what were the circumstances of his death, how old was he, what about his family, who set up the grave monument, and of course, the most intriguing question for me is how much are actually the poetic verses related to the actual faith of the deceased person. Now, before we go, let's say, into a more detailed analysis of the verses, which I tried to conduct in order to see if it is possible to give some answers to the questions. Just a few words about, let's say, what kind of inscription, what kind of epitaph is this. We know that the epitaphs can vary in their structure and in their form. They can be very short. They can contain only the name of the deceased. And then they can, of course, contain or other additional information, from which we can find out the age, the origin, parents' names, personal qualities, cursus honorum, if in the Roman context, the cause of death. Who were the heirs, who were the closest of him, who built the monument, and stuff like that. Of course, monuments often contain information such as curses and fines for violators. And even a longer inscription may contain some instructions for commemorative rites. The epitaphs have both informative and, let's say, more personal side. The informative aspect is, of course, expressed in a formulaic language, which just provides us with the facts. On the other hand, of course, the epitaphs often, and especially the epitaphs in verse, try to express the feelings of those who actually were left behind, their grief, their sorrow, their love. And of course, the poetic language serves this purpose actually very efficiently. But even the verse inscriptions also have contain all the necessary information about the deceased. So our inscription, in this regard, if we want to define its place, is actually very unique. If we think about that it only contains the name of the deceased person and just the first name, it should be compared to the most short inscriptions, which only contain the name of the deceased. But we should mention that it should be noted that in the area of linkestis, actually, even the shortest inscriptions at least contain the name of the father, because the onomastic formula is always nominative plus the name of the father in genitive, and at least information about the age. So this is the most simple formula. And of course, that is missing from our inscription. But now I suggest that we go a little bit into a more thorough analysis and go verse by verse and see if we can deduce something more about Eugenius. So the text is actually a dialogue in a second person singular, in which the one we suppose who set up the monument addresses Eugenius, and directly in the first verse, by using two imperative forms, keklitchi and anasteo, from the verbs klio and anistemi, actually expresses a very simple and human wish that the child, teknonemon, should hear. It says, "Hear me, child mine, my child, and rise up again." for your parents. The use of the imperative form keklithi, we have parallels for it in Homer. It is especially in the beginning of the verse, as you can see. The other form, anasteo, is a little bit odd because we would expect a contracted form for the language of the period, but perhaps, let's say, a verse like this verse from Homer, from Iliad 382, from the fifth song, tetlat hi teknonemon kai anascheo, could have served, let's say, at least as a structural model for the one provided in our inscription. If we want to know what was the relationship between the one who set up the monument and the deceased, we should say that it is revealed in the beginning with this expression teknon emon, my child. And the adjective emon being in singular, of course, that immediately shows us that this was one person. And it is further, as we shall see, corroborated with consistent use of other verbal forms and adjectives in singular throughout the inscription, as we shall see. But then the phrase soisi goneusi, to your parents, shows that the prayer was and the wish was expressed in the name of the both parents, from which, of course, we can conclude that they were both alive. Now, as for the Homeric parallels of this phrase teknonemon, it is very usual in the Homeric epics. And it's mentioned in the first line, apart for, of course, being informative for us, actually, it reminds us of the many mothers, fathers, children, both gods or humans, which are mentioned in the Iliad and the Odyssey, and their meaningful conversations and very often actually consolation. So I want to say that many actually important dialogues in the Homeric epics contain this particular phrase, teknon emon. But we should also note that, for instance, in the Odyssey, this phrase is used also by Euryclea, the nurse of Odysseus, which was, of course, not his mother, but she raised him. So I would ask, I would pose the question, should we also take into the consideration the possibility that the person behind the verses was perhaps not the biological parent to Eugenius or someone, but it was someone close to him, like a parent? And if so, if that might be the case, then does the expression soisi goneusi actually introduces the personal adjective being in second person and not in the first person? Does this implies that this was actually not a biological relation? The second line continues with another question, actually. Why have you left the sweet light and come in the darkness, would be the simple translation. It consists of, again, of partly known Homeric phrases. Phaos is typically in Homer related to the word for sun. And of course, the metaphor is that the son of the light is usually related with the sight, and that's a metaphor for life. And then in the opposite direction, the darkness, skotos, is related to the loss of the sight, and that's of course the death. The form here, skotia, is a late form of skotos, and we will not find it as such, of course, in the Homeric verses. But I think what is interesting here is the use of the question word tipte, because it is, of course, very common in Homer, and it typically expresses surprise and at some unexpected or sudden event. And very often, actually, it is followed by a verbal form which shows movement, like in this case, afikneise, come. In the sense that very often it is actually, it shows surprise about someone's unexpected appearance or disappearance. So I would again ask a question here: is this perhaps meaningful for the interpretation of our inscription? Does this shows that Eugenius' death was very unexpected and very sudden? The next two verses are almost completely taken from Homer's Odyssey, as you may notice. Of course, adapted a little bit to the content of the inscription. In the original lines, the verbal form is st is in the third person singular, and of course here we have a different verbal form es has. Of course, this makes the text less beautiful, but it serves the purpose of the dialogue in second person singular. But the phrase is a little bit unfinished here, because in the original text, perida hirat heoisin at hanatoisin edoke, these are the hira are the rites, actually, the sacrifice, whatever humans do to honor gods. And of course, the verb should be something like edoke or anything in that sense. And it's not usual to be obviously object of the verb echo, but of course, the language of late antiquity is not the same as in the Homeric times. Another thing should be noted here: the use of the genitive form theioio. This is, of course, ancient genitive. It's archaic, and it is interesting that no matter how, let's say, broken was the Greek language in the 3rd century AD, these archaic genitives are still found on the inscription as kind of a personal mark of the knowledge, obviously, of the knowledge of acquaintance of the poetic language. But it is actually a very common form in Homon, and actually it is quite more common than the normal genitive theio. Then follows an eulogy of the qualities of Eugenius. The phrases are toien kefalen omata kaifrenas est klas. These are typical phrases taken from Homer. Nothing much to be said about this. It is quite straightforward. Ace is the end of the previous sentence. And then the tone changes, and of course, a grief is expressed with let's say, with a noon, introducing, let's say, a change of the tone. So you had all these qualities, but now you have made me, you have given me woes that are incurable, and the phrase is, of course, almost 100% Homeric. The next verse is also interesting, because then it's, of course, the content is simple. It's another formula taken from Odyssey. How could I forget you, mourning and sorrowing? And Odiromenos here clearly shows that the one who speaks through the verses is in masculine gender. But what I find interesting here is the introductory expression al ut hos, which actually is supposed to introduce opposition. But what is the opposition here? In the original verses in Odyssey, it is actually, these are words spoken. The story is about Aegyptius, who still grieves for his son Antiphos, who followed Odysseus and was eaten by the Cyclops. And the father still grieves for his son, and that's the point of the use of this phrase, although he has 3 other sons which are alive, one of which is Eurynomus, which was one of the Penelope's suitors. Of course, unless this is, let's say, a negligence on the side of the writer of these verses, what should we say? That this is that the mourning is unwilling and as such naturally follows the premature death of Eugenius. And then, of course, the phrase follows, hos ophelon autos olesthai. Would I myself had perished there? This is another very natural wish of someone who has lost a child or a dear one, to change the places and be dead instead of the child. But in the next three verses, the tone again changes, and actually we have another wish expressed in the third line. These three verses are taken from Homer, but the order is reversed. The third line is first, actually, in Odyssey. And it says, may any other also be destroyed who rejoices over your death. This is kind of course, a curse. And this is interesting what is said in the previous two lines. But my heart is torn for wise Eugenius, hapless man who far from his parents suffered. This obviously should be taken as an implication about the circumstances of Eugenius' death, that he died actually far away from his home, from his parents, just in the same way as Odysseus, because in the original verses, this phrase is used to describe Odysseus' fate, who is far away from, who is even separated from his friends. These are the verses in the first song where when Athena tries to convince Zeus to help Odysseus come back home. And that's why the first verse says, okay, maybe someone else, it's okay if it suffers, but Odysseus did not deserve that. But and it is also worth noting that pemata in Homeric epics is always used with reference to pains which are suffered somewhere at a distant location. So I would suggest that this is actually a fact, and that it explains that Eugenius died far away from his parents. And from here and to the end of the inscription, now we are, of course, because the plate is broken, the verses are not so clear and are reconstructed with, let's say, not certainty. This expression, moires kersases, I find it difficult to understand because I'm not sure if Moira is the destiny, the fate, the deadly fate has anything to do with Keiro, with the verb Keiro, because kersases is from Keiro. But there is one verse in Homer which somehow may relate the fate to the hands. As you can see, the verse 83 from the song 21. Moira Oloe. It is a story of a hero who was brought by the faith again under the hands of someone else to face the mortal fate. So perhaps if we take into consideration the form Oleo, which is from Olimi, to be destroyed, maybe this is an expression of a preparation for revenge for the death of Eugenius, or something like that. Maybe we should think of. That the writer of these verses is actually prepared to make a revenge and ask for payment for Eugenius' death. Another interesting verse is this one, and the phrase "hosse tithon eonta," because in Homer this phrase is used typically to show that someone was. It is used usually with the verb trefo, to rear, and it is usually refers to someone who has been reared, either by a biological father or by someone else next of kin or close, such as the nurse or the masters. We have examples like that. And then the term kedistos, it's also, which means most cared for, but it also is used in the meaning of nearest allied by marriage. So, of course, the whole context is not clear, but should we think that perhaps this is a reference to an event which involved someone close who raised Eugenius, who took care of Eugenius, and is mentioned for some reason. In the next two verses, the parallels with the Homeric verses are present. We have them, not exact, but let's say we can rely on that. And this is perhaps a curse, which is this is likely a curse that anyone who is responsible for Eugenius' death, let's say, a mortal faith will be realized, will be fulfilled, and that this is important in the last verse, may also die in the same way, far from his friends, just like Odysseus did. So I take this as another confirmation that this event that this is a fact, that actually Eugenius was far from his family and from his close people. I will not make any conclusions, of course, further about the content of the inscription. I will just like to comment at the end that, of course, it is a challenge how to bring this kind of inscription closer to the audience. Of course, the universal human value of the inscription is obvious. I don't think that there is anything more universal other than a parent grieving for a child. Of course, we can speculate about the actual story. In our digital collection, we will be able to, of course, as an additional material, to present all these parallels and the data. And I suppose we would be able to call the audience to think about what could have the real reasons been for the death of Eugenius. Thank you.